Welcome to Nonprofit Profiles. I'm Genevieve Riatort. Today's show, we're going to talk about domestic violence prevention. It's a problem that affects many of us, and Sojourn, a program of OPCC, is working to address those problems. Here with us today are Ada Palatai, Assistant Director at Sojourn, and Miguel Perez, the Prevention Program Coordinator at Sojourn. Welcome.
Hi,
Thank you.
So can you tell me a little bit about Sojourn as a whole, the history and what services you provide?
Sure. Sojourn was founded in 1977 as sort of the first unofficial project of OPCC, which is the largest homeless service provider on the west side of LA County. Sojourn is the only domestic violence service provider on this side of town and is the only project of OPCC that provides those services to this population. We provide a broad range of services to victims and their children, which includes 2 shelters, one an emergency shelter and another is a second stage or transitional shelter. We also offer clinics in the area of legal services and social services advocacy. We offer support groups to victims in the community. We offer other support services like court advocacy.
Wow, it's like a whole wraparound service.
Very much so, yeah. We also do education in the community. And MVPP, which we'd like to talk a lot about today, is
So
one of our...
Male Violence Prevention Project?
Yes, forgive me, we like acronyms. Yes, it's the Male Violence Prevention Project. It's one of the newest and a really exciting work that we're doing now at Sojourn to sort of beef up our prevention work around domestic violence and violence in general.
That's great. So it sounds like you started with addressing the issue, what was already happening, and now you've kind of really got a good handle on that. So it's about how can we stop this from happening in the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell me about the Male Violence Prevention Project. I'd like to know more about how that works.
How it works? That's a great question. Well, the project works in various ways, and it works with a lot of people in a lot of different departments, and together we're trying to address this issue because the fact of the matter is that most violent crime is committed overwhelmingly by men. So we're trying to address this issue, this fact together as a city, as a nonprofit, as various other partners coming together to talk about what can be done.
So it's not just Sojourn and OPCC working together. You've brought in other partners from the community. I understand you work with the police department?
The police department, the Human Services Division, Community and Cultural Services Division in the city. We work with the Westside Domestic Violence Network. We work with the Santa Monica Commission on the Status of Women, the Center for Civic Mediation. I know I'm missing one or two.
Well, that's already quite a list. A lot of civic engagement, it seems like, is going to support this program.
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't do it without our partners. You know, violence is an issue that affects all of us equally across all cultural lines, all socioeconomic factors. So we all need to have a seat at the table in order to address what's going on in our community.
So I understand that there's a particular model that, is it Jackson Katz who started this idea of how you, the model that you operate from? Can you tell me about that?
His bystander theory is a big part of our work, and his theory basically says that we need to approach this problem as empowered allies and not look at each other as potential perpetrators or victims, and to speak up or do something when you see or hear someone being violent in various ways, whether it's just verbal violence, picking on somebody, or in fact doing something extremely physical, to think of yourself as someone who can speak up and do something about it.
And so how do you empower people so that they feel that they are able to and know when it's safe to speak up or take action?
I think that's a really important question with a very complicated answer. And I think something that our project aims to do is, rather than answering that question, giving people opportunities to practice. You know, what would you do if this situation were to arise? And since all of us are very intimately sort of affected by violence in various ways, We try to present those opportunities for people in small groups and intimate settings in a safe space where they can sort of start working through, you know, what would I do if I were confronted with this situation? What have I done in the past? How was that okay or not okay? What am I grappling with in trying to make these choices that are very difficult?
Wow, so it's almost like just introducing the idea and getting them familiar and comfortable with the idea so that they can start thinking about how to handle it.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, well, it sounds like a really great program. Can you tell me any success stories about people who've worked with the program and how it's affected their lives?
Sure.
That's a good question. There's a lot of good stories
I
out
mean, it
there.
can also be just general, you know, in general, how people are affected.
Well, statistically speaking, when people come into the discussion, they fill out a survey. They do so afterwards, and then we follow up 3 months and 6 months after the fact, and people are reporting less identification with hyper-gender ideology and a more willingness to participate in pro-social bystander behavior.
Okay, so you're going to have to tell me what hypergender ideology means, because I'm a little lost there.
Okay. Well, anyone who identifies either gender in an extreme way, like this is the way, you know, girls are supposed to be or boys are supposed to be.
So like machismo, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's
for
right.
sure.
So kind of introducing the idea that you don't have to be super attached to that to still be masculine or to still be feminine.
That's right. So at 3 and at 6 months after we have these discussions, we're finding that people agree less with these hypergender ideologies, which is a good thing for us.
And what kind of, I guess there's some training that goes into this, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit more in the next segment.
Sure.
But I just want to say I'm so excited about the work that you guys are doing, and I'm really pleased that we can let our audience know that this service is out there and it's something that we can get involved with.
Great.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please stay with us. We will be back with Ada and with Miguel in the next segment to learn a little bit more about how these programs work. Thank you.
Welcome to our home away from home.
Action!
When I came here, I discovered I could write.
I found the confidence to share my poetry, and now they're songs.
I got away from the trouble in my neighborhood.
Come check us out.
At the Pico Youth and Family Center.
Join us.
Or volunteer. Together, we can change our world.
That's a wrap.
Welcome back to Nonprofit Profiles. We are back with Ada and Miguel talking about Sojourn, a program of OPCC, and specifically the Male Violence Prevention Project. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I understand that there's a 4-hour training that's part of the program. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and how that works?
Sure.
Okay. Well, if I may,
Absolutely.
we like to focus on adults, in particular adults who work with youth, and we like to create an intimate setting that is a safe setting. So no more than about 20 people to talk about this problem. And as you can imagine, it's not an easy thing to talk about. So it's very important that we create a very comfortable environment for people to really express some of these biases that they may have and unpack them and to sort of figure out how they could be dangerous and to also practice these scenarios.
I would imagine it's probably helpful for people to see that other people are struggling with the same issues.
That's actually something we're very intentional and thoughtful about how we put these discussions together, including who we pair up as facilitators of the discussion. And the discussion is a series of activities each is meant to build on the previous one. And part of the activities is sort of leveling the playing field, if you will. So setting the tone that we are all grappling with these issues. None of us are immune from gender socialization. We've all experienced that and been exposed to these messages in one way or another.
Right, that it's not shameful. Many families have this issue and deal with it.
Absolutely.
And how do you find participants for the program? Do you invite them? Do they seek you out? How does that work?
Well, right now we are focusing our efforts on adults who influence the lives of youth in Santa Monica.
So is that educators?
That is, we have a very broad definition of what an influencer is. We believe that everybody has a sphere of influence. However, we are doing a lot of our work right now is focusing with teachers and coaches folks who are working in city programs, working with youth after school, or in youth sports programs that are not affiliated with the school per se. We're also working with the police department, and they have a lot of interaction with youth, and PAL, for example.
Sure, Police Athletic League?
Police Activities
Activities.
League?
Police Activities League.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks for that.
No, I get it confused too. So yeah, so that's our focus right now. But we would love to, have this model replicated everywhere, really. But we're just trying to see some positive results, long-term positive results, before we branch out and hopefully develop some more resources so that we can branch out further than Santa Monica.
Well, that's great. I know that the community of Santa Monica has been very actively involved. You mentioned involvement with the police department and the city of Santa Monica. Can you talk a little bit about the community partners that you have and what everyone's role is in making this work?
Sure. Well, this all actually started because of a partnership between the Westside Domestic Violence Network, which Sojourn founded and it continues to administer, and the police department. The police chief at that time attended a conference that was hosted by the Westside Domestic Violence Network where we had Jackson Katz come out and speak. And at that time, they decided to move forward and invite community leaders, and that's basically how this project developed. And from that point, other community partners sort of emerged, like the city has been a tremendous support of our project, of our work in general, both at Sojourn and at OPCC, but also with this project in particular, supporting and sanctioning the countless hours of work that staff put in, allowing us to come in and, conduct workshops for their city staff, and so we're so thankful to these partners and other folks on the executive committee, like the Commission on the Status of Women, like the Center for Civic Mediation. These partners are instrumental in helping us sort of, in the broad sense, continue to implement this project and spread the message throughout the city.
Now, I heard mentioned in our earlier discussions Michael Jackson from the city, who is clearly not Michael Jackson, the departed entertainer, and also Captain Shirley Wendell from the Santa Monica Police Department. Can you talk specifically about what their roles have been?
Sure. So Michael Jackson is the chair of our core committee, which is sort of we call it the Skills Committee, and that's sort of the boots on the ground committee, if you will, in charge of the day-to-day implementation of the MVPP mission. And Captain Shirley has been instrumental sitting on the executive committee, sort of serving as the representative of the police department, the police chief, who has since retired, sort of passed the torch on to Captain Shirley, and who has sort of helped us carry forth the message in the police department. We've actually done trainings in the police department and hope to develop a site-specific campaign in the police department as well as in the city. And so those two individuals are helping us with that effort.
It's so wonderful that you get such support on a really high level from people in the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you think have been the results? How can we quantify what the successes have been?
You want to talk about that?
Well, yeah, I can definitely try to talk about it. The success is that we're talking about it, and that people are learning from each other and really starting to think about it.
Awareness.
Right. And then going forward, I believe that people's behavior has changed, and will continue to do so.
Wow. So if someone is interested in getting involved, can they go to your website? I believe it's opcc.net. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, they can go to our website. They can give our business office a call. They'll likely get connected with Miguel, who is spearheading the project at Sojourn, and we can talk about what we can do, how we can work together.
Okay, great. So if someone's an educator or a coach or is just interested in helping with the project, they can get a hold of you and get involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're interested in hosting 4-hour discussions as much as our resources will allow at other, people's schools, at PTAs.
And if there are women who are in need of your services, how might they get in touch with you?
All of our services can be accessed through our 24-hour hotline, which
you
we
can
operate.
give that number if you like.
Sure, it's area code 310-264-6644.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you both so much.
Thank you.
It really is an amazing program. I know that I'm seeing results in the community. I see, speak about it at the schools, the bullies, don't just let it happen. So it seems like it is becoming more of a conversation, and the work that you're doing is clearly helping to advance that conversation. So I commend you, and I thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
And thank you for being with us. I hope you'll get involved with this great program. And coming up next, we'll hear from a board member and why someone would want to volunteer and be a part of this great program. So please do stay with us.
Being in foster care was like always living in someone else's house. Being adopted means me and my brother and my sister never have to move again. Last week, our new parents took us to the beach. We'd never seen the ocean before. We collected seashells, and we ate ice cream, and we built a sandcastle, and it was awesome.
Small things mean a lot to a child in foster care. For more information on how you can foster or adopt a child, contact Share Your Heart LA today.
Welcome back to Nonprofit Profiles. I'm here now with Richard Hirsch, who sits on the board of OPCC. Welcome, Richard.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks so much for being here, and I'd love to hear about how you got involved with OPCC and how long you've been on the board.
Well, I've been on the board for 18 years, and the way I got involved was that I received a call from an old friend of mine, Sheila Kuehl, who, as a matter of fact, was one of the founders of Sojourn. And
Wow.
Sheila had just been elected to the California State Legislature and said, told me that she was leaving the board of OPCC, and I said, "What's that?" And said, "You must come by and have a look and tour the facilities," which I did. It was a much different agency in those days, and I joined the board, and I've been on ever since, and it's one of the greatest moves I've made.
Wow, that's wonderful. I've actually had the opportunity to hear Sheila Kuehl speak, and she is quite a powerhouse. So
She certainly is.
I'm
She
not
always has been.
surprised that she was able to pull you in.
No.
And so tell me, how has the experience been for you? What kinds of changes have you been able to see in the agency over your tenure?
Well, when I first joined OPCC, it was headquartered over by the church in Ocean Park over on Hill Street. And of course, now we have many facilities. The program has expanded dramatically. We have 10 different programs now in OPCC. In those days, it was known as the Ocean Park Community Center. And it's now the primary agency for homelessness, for mentally ill individuals, for battered women, and other programs we have in the West Side and Santa Monica area.
Wow, it is certainly impressive, and I've seen some of your facilities, and it really is amazing. I've had a chance to interview some of the other programs that OPCC runs on this program, and it's really wonderful work that you've been doing.
It is. I'm very, very proud of what everyone does.
Yeah. And tell me how the partnership with the city works. How much involvement does the city have with the work that you do, and how does that affect the community?
Well, the city's been a great supporter for OPCC, and we really couldn't do what we do without the support of the city of Santa Monica. It's a very progressive and forward-looking city. It cares about its residents. It cares about people who are full-time residents and also people who find themselves here in unfortunate circumstances. And it doesn't turn its back on people. And the city has helped us to get people out of homelessness, to get people out of their mental illness situations, and to move them into their own apartments, their own living facilities, and to become productive members of society. So that we could not have done that without the support of the city of Santa Monica and its staff.
Wow, it's great. So I imagine over the years you've seen quite a number of people really turn their lives around.
Absolutely, and that's what keeps me going, frankly, are the success stories. Every time I go to an event and hear a client of ours who talks about their life from the streets to their own apartment to their own jobs and to feeling good and to being sober and to being a fulfilling and productive member of society, that makes it all worthwhile.
Oh yeah, I've been at a number of those success breakfast events, and I always say it's a three hanky breakfast.
That's true.
Because you hear people tell their stories, and it's very moving.
That's right.
And I think I have some experience with being on the other side of social services. I grew up in a very poor neighborhood with a single mom, and we benefited from services that agencies provided. And so I really have seen firsthand how that kind of support helped my life and helped me to get into a position where I now get to help people through my work at the West Side Food Bank, which of course supplies food to some of OPCC's programs.
Wonderful agency. It's very sad when I hear government, when sequester or when cuts are being made in government, that social services are sometimes the first place that cuts are made. And I think this is really one of the most important functions that government has, is to help its citizens who are less fortunate. And that should be the last on the ladder, in my view, of where we cut our budgets.
Well, I won't argue with you there. And we're fortunate that the city of Santa Monica is so supportive of its social service programs. But the city, of course, can't do it all, and social service agencies can't do it without support of the public. Can you talk a little bit about how the community and our listeners can support the kind of work that OPCC is doing?
Oh, of course. We have a website, opcc.net. You can receive information there about our various different programs, about the ways that people can volunteer for many of the programs and actually work in the shelters, work at the feeding programs, and work in various places throughout the agency. Of course, we're always delighted to take contributions. We have fundraisers throughout the year. We have a major event called Vintage Hollywood in June,
sounds fun,
which is a wonderful event. And you can receive information about that event on the website. And it's just it's a great program to be involved in, and there are many different ways for people from the community to participate.
And why should they? What will they get out of it?
What they'll get out of it is they'll meet people like the ones that we've been talking about, people who they'll see the face of homelessness, they'll see the face of mental illness, they'll see the face of battered women, and they'll realize these are not people to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. But these are people they can engage with. These are people they can hear about their stories, and they can work with them and see them move through the system and come out the other end a better person.
And that's really inspiring, isn't it?
It's incredibly inspiring and very rewarding for anyone who's involved.
Well, thank you so much, both for your work with OPCC and for coming here to tell us about it. I really appreciate it. It's been a delight to have you on the show, and I'm just so glad that you could be here.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Well, you heard that. OPCC.net is the place to go to find out more about how to get involved with all of these fabulous programs. I hope you'll join me again on Nonprofit Profiles. Thanks so much for being with us.